Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
To the fourth edition of Living the Gospel of Life. I'm your host, Leticia Velasquez, and I have a special guest with us today, Rod Murphy. I'll tell you more about Rod later, but let's begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O Mary, bright dawn of the new world, Mother of the living, to you do we entrust the cause of life. Look down, O Mother, upon the vast number of babies not allowed to be born, of the poor whose lives are made difficult, of men and women who are victims of brutal violence, of the elderly and the sick killed by indifference or out of misguided mercy. Grant that all who believe in your Son may proclaim the gospel of life with honesty and love to the people of our time. Obtain for them the grace to accept that gospel as a gift ever new, the joy of celebrating it with gratitude throughout their lives, and the courage to bear witness to it resolutely in order to build, together with people of goodwill, the civilization of truth and love to the praise and glory of God, the Creator and Lover of life. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, there's few people that I know in my circle of pro-life friends that have done more to have courageous witness, to bear witness to the culture of life right in this doorstep of the culture of death than Rod Murphy. We have a mutual friend, Corinne Dahm, who has been the TV host of The Face of Pro-Life, a local pro-life TV station, and she introduced me to Rod and his center, Problem Pregnancy. Problem Pregnancy is a pregnancy resource center with ultrasound and a chapel, which has been at the foot of Planned Parenthood for 36 years in Worcester, Massachusetts. Thousands of babies have been saved. Rod estimates between 150 and 250 a year. It's an amazing ministry. And not only that, but Rod has gone around the East Coast setting up 9 pregnancy centers, which he'll tell us about, helping them to follow in his model of being an incredible help to the women who are looking to avoid abortion, and even those who think that abortion is the only solution. He wrote a book to describe his work called Stopping Abortion at Death's Door, and has spoken in various Knights of Columbus in churches, Massachusetts Citizens for Life, and it has given speeches, again, up and down the East Coast, wherever he's opened a pregnancy center, telling others how he did it. Rod says that being self-employed allowed him the free time to be active in pro-life, and he is also coming to an upcoming conference at Holy Angels in Meriden, Connecticut, a pro-life conference, again, telling how he helped me to set up St. Gerard Center for Life, was operating in Hartford, right next to the abortion clinic for years. But the previous director gave up that center, moved farther away in a church convent 2 miles away, and Rod helped me bring St. Gerard's right to the doors of Hartford GYN, an abortion clinic there, and how that has dramatically affected the numbers of women going to the abortion clinic. And we've been able to give life-saving help to so many women that thought they had no choice but to have an abortion. So with no further ado, Rod, thanks for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
Great. So tell us about the beginnings of Problem Pregnancy. How did you get involved?
Well, Problem Pregnancy started in 1982, but before that started, I was active in Massachusetts Citizens for Life. I was on the board of directors. Actually, was on the executive committee of the statewide group, and I was involved in trying to get people elected to state offices and federal offices who were pro-life. So when you're pro-life, you should be pro-life and do a lot of different things, because everything you do kind of combines with the other things that other people are doing to help to save more babies. So when Planned Parenthood, who had the a abortion mill in Boston, and it was the only one in the state, decided to expand, their first choice was Worcester. So when they had to go through a state regulators at the Department of Public Health, and there was all sorts of meetings and public address things where they had to make their case to the public. And so I got involved with the group that was fighting against Planned Parenthood coming to Worcester, and we fought it for years and with the courts and everything, but there was finally one decisive meeting in the State House in Boston where we thought we were going to win because we had two Catholic bureaucrats who were on the board of directors committee, and at the last minute the arms were twisted, and both of these Catholics voted the wrong way. So Planned Parenthood got their
Wow.
license to come into Worcester, and so then we had to go back and figure out what's the next step. And so what we did is we knew where they were going, which was on Main Street in the middle of the city, and we were able to get in the same building on the same floor, and it was a large office building with I think it was 10 floors or something, and I think we were on the 6th floor, and our office was before when the clients got off the elevator to go to Planned Parenthood, they had to go by our door.
Wow.
Before they got there. So we put PP ink on our door, and we had what we call corridor counselors, not sidewalk counselors.
Ah.
So we had corridor counselors catching the women as they got out of the elevator and catching them and trying to convince them to come in. We did a very good job of saving babies there. Planned Parenthood took us to court, I don't know how many times in the first few years. Finally, they sued the landlord, and the landlord wouldn't give us a lease. He gave them a lease. So we were legally, they didn't have to protect their lease or anything. We didn't have any rights, so they evicted us. One of the owners of the property was a pro-lifer, evangelical, and he allowed us to move to the second building, which is right next door, and we moved in there, and we stayed there for many years. So that's how we got started.
So you obviously were interfering with the business of Planned Parenthood, and I say business because even though they are officially a nonprofit, we know that they make quite a bit of money out of abortion, correct?
Of course, yes. We were interfering as best we could.
When you say interfering, you're offering women what? What were you offering them?
What most sidewalk counselors do, we were doing. We would talk to the women as they get off the elevator. We would explain to them what we could do for them, and we would explain to them what it was that abortion actually is, and we would tell them they would have a free pregnancy test. Everything we did was free. If they needed supplies of some kind or other things that they might need, counseling, whatever, lawyers, whatever, we had it free. So you
offer them basically what? Everything they need to not have an abortion.
Everything they needed except they couldn't kill their baby. Yeah, anything that they needed.
Give me an example over the 36 years, the types of things you've offered to women in exchange for their baby.
As we got a little bit wealthier, we had more, I don't mean wealthier, but as we got more substance and we had more contributors, we were able to do things financially that we couldn't do. So that now we pay rent for women all the time. I mean, long-time rents. We pay child care for women so that they have another child and they're pregnant and their boyfriend is going to throw them out of the house if they don't get an abortion, or their father is going to do the same. We were able to put them in an apartment and pay their apartment until they have the baby and even beyond. We do the same with the child care. We've taken women who are immigrants in some kind or another, who come from Colombia or Ghana or someplace, and they won't. And the only way they could save this baby is to go home to their mother. We pay their airline flight back to their home country. We bought crazy things like, one woman, we asked her what it is that if we could help her with it, what would it take for her not to have the abortion? She said, well, I have to drag all the clothes in the house. I live with my mother, and she's got a couple of kids, and we have to get the clothes cleaned. So we have to go to the laundromat. It's about half a mile away. We don't have a car. If we had a washer and a dryer in the house, that would help a lot. So we bought the washer and a dryer. We had the Knights of Columbus put it in, and the woman didn't have an abortion.
Beautiful. So that's putting to rest the lie that, we save the babies and don't do anything for the moms. You do quite a bit for them.
We had another one that we had more than one of these, where this was a African American couple who had decided that these were ambitious. They had gone to college. They wanted to do well in this country, so they didn't want to get married or have a baby until they were married, and because they both had jobs. So what we did is we actually had a wedding and a reception that we paid for.
Wow.
So that they could get married, and it was like $2,000. I remember because I had
fantastic.
So those are the kind of things we do.
Almost anything. Okay, so continue your story. You were down the corridor from Planned Parenthood. You got kicked out. You were in the next building. Yeah. Then what happened?
Yeah. So we stayed in that second location until Planned Parenthood bought a building closer to a Hispanic neighborhood. They were very near a Hispanic neighborhood in Worcester. They like to locate where the minorities are, and so when they moved, and we were able to rent a former what do you call it? Video store. The video store went out of business, and we rented the space, but it was their parking lot adjoined our parking lot, so we were able to talk to the girls getting out of the cars. And then we ended up.
And that's the most important thing, is to have access to the women. And what you're offering them is nothing less than support and informed consent, which Planned Parenthood doesn't offer them, right? Do they get alternatives in Planned Parenthood than abortion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they don't. Well, that's their solution to all problems: to kill the baby, and so.
And they don't give them really informed consent about possible complications for abortion, do they?
They tell them nothing. They never even show them the ultrasound scan, so they don't know what's happening. The doctor looked at the ultrasound scan, but they don't, and the doctor uses the ultrasound scan to kill the baby.
But not to show the mother that the baby is a heartbeat, the baby's moving, how big the baby is. Yeah, so the woman really goes in there without knowing what she's doing, and you're informing her of what she's doing.
No. Some of
their babies
them do know. Some of them are pretty tough, but most of them don't know. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, if they know, it's not because Planned Parenthood told them. If they found it, perhaps.
No. Yeah, they know beforehand.
I've had women at Harvard Women's Center that had looked their baby's age up, and you could see a sonogram. I forget the name of the website, but there's plenty of websites out there where you can see a sonogram with a baby at, let's say, 16 weeks gestation. So you can have a pretty good idea of what your child looks like. So women are more savvy than they used to be, but so some of them don't want to think about it.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, you were at least offering that to see their baby, and that's totally different.
Yes, and and you're right about being next to the abortion mill as close as you can get to them, because just the fact that there are people standing there, even if they're just praying, but we also think you should do more than praying. But even if they're just praying, it says to the woman, there's something wrong with this. If all these people here are praying that I don't go in, they see the signs, they see this and that. So it's sort of a signal to them that maybe they should consider this again. And whereas people driving by an abortion mill year after year and they don't even think anything about it, there's what's going on in there. It's because it's legal, it's okay. So if you have somebody standing there saying that it's not okay in some way or another, it's good. You'll save babies just for that reason.
You awaken the conscience.
Yeah, there are some women who know it's wrong, and they're worrying about it. They got an appointment tomorrow, and they're thinking about it the night before. They're saying, if I'm not you don't want me to do this, put somebody in my way on the way. This has happened. We've heard this so many times.
So you're literally the answer to prayer. You're the answer to prayer in many cases.
Yes,
I once
yes.
heard a story when the movie The Passion of the Christ was out. A woman was sitting in an abortion clinic waiting room for her procedure, looked out the window and saw the words "The Passion of the Christ" on a movie marquee and walked out. So sometimes it's just a little tiny push, and that's all they need. They're really, you said, looking for a reason not to do it, because in their heart of hearts, many of these women are doing it against their own will. They're not going in there joyfully in most cases. They feel like they're trapped.
I would say most women are forced, and it's either emotional force or physical force, mostly emotional force. But they're not doing it of their own will. Most women. That's what I.
What kind of force have you witnessed?
We're talking about women who have no self-esteem. They have a guy. The guy is usually a bum, and a series of guys that some of them have, they're bums, and they don't care about the woman. Maybe they're getting the welfare money from the woman. Maybe they're getting sex from the woman. Or not maybe, yes. And they don't want her to be disturbed. They have no interest in that woman. They have no care over that woman, and they're telling her to have the abortion. If not, they're going to leave, or they're living in his house, and they're going to throw her out of the house.
So there's threats from the boyfriend, threats he's going to leave her, threats she'll be homeless. I like to say abortion is a creep's best friend, because a creep like that wants what he wants from the woman, but doesn't want to be a father. So it gets him off the hook, and she's the one who has to undergo the emotional trauma of the procedure and the physical trauma.
They contributed to their own distress, because they go along with this feminist stuff about it's the woman's decision. It's not the men's decision. So the man loves that, because he's going to force the woman, because he's the dominant person in the relationship. So,
but convince her it was her decision, and she's empowering herself.
Yeah.
How twisted. Yeah. Oh wow. So anyway, Planned Parenthood, you rented this video store, and they had a self-standing building at that time.
There were 3 stores. We were in the middle. So we were able to. It was not enough space, but we were able to use it to. And we saved babies, and we bought our first ultrasound in that building, and we ended up buying that building. The landlady was very sympathetic to our efforts and our mission.
Wonderful.
So when it came time, her husband had died. Her husband was really the owner, but she ended up with it. And when she finally wanted to get rid of her real estate, I had asked her to give us a first shot, and she did. And we were able to raise enough money to put a down payment down, and got a loan from the bank that I was using for my business, so that they knew who I was. So we were able to get a mortgage, and we were a 501c3, a nonprofit, and we were around long enough, so we had some history, and we had the down payment, which I think was something like $80,000. So
how much was the building?
I think we bought the building for $250 or $200, something like that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But nothing is going to deter you from being next to Planned Parenthood or for these women and out.
Yeah.
So that didn't last long either, right? Buying that building.
Well, maybe we were there for perhaps 10 years, maybe, and then Planned Parenthood bought a former doctor's office on Pleasant Street in Worcester, which is one of the main streets, and built a new gigantic Auschwitz. That's what it looks like to me. And before they had their building up, we had bought the building across the street. And what happened is,
did they know this?
They didn't know it. What happened is the building was a doctor's office across the street, and they wanted $400,000 for it, and it was $500,000, $485,000. So what happened is I was trying to sell the building we were in so we could get the money to buy the new building, and I couldn't sell it fast enough. But we had one supporter who was a big contractor in Worcester who was very pro-life, and he used to call me once a week and say, when are you going to buy that building? said,
Wow.
wait, how am I going to? Like, I can't get a bridge loan. I was trying to get a bridge loan from the bank, which is kind of gives you money in the middle.
Right.
And I said, how am I ever going to do this? And I can't sell this building. If I could sell this building, I would buy it in a minute. So it's went on for about 2 months or so. Then one day Ray called me and he said, I bought the building. I said, what?
He bought it.
He bought the building.
Wow.
He bought the building, and then he sold it back to us after we sold our original building.
Great.
And he sold it back to us for $100,000 less than what he paid for it.
Oh, God bless him. Wow. Boy, oh boy.
So that's how we got we had a mortgage, still had the mortgage. So, but we had the mortgage that we could pay.
Right.
So,
and you made money in the other building, didn't you? I think you told me.
I sold the other building for almost $200,000 more than we paid for it. So.
Unbelievable. So, when you do God's work, it's amazing the blessings that He brings. As Mother Teresa likes to say, God has all the money. We just have to find out who's holding it for Him, don't we?
God's got all the $100 bills, is what she said.
Oh, God's got good. So that's wonderful. So you were up and running before they even put the lights
we were
on.
There before they
Surprise! That must have been quite the awakening for them because they had actually built part of the building, right? They had built it up.
Great. And the place needed some work. We had one of the fundraising things we did was we made it available for people to give money for the sheetrock and people to give money for the flooring and people to give money for the roof work and all that kind of stuff. So we had a whole lot. Then we had the Knights of Columbus come in and do the work for us. So,
wonderful.
So it was
a real group effort. And it's a beautiful facility. I've been there many times. You have a waiting room. It's just as nice as any doctor's office. A desk where your volunteers man the door, and they also do the paperwork. You have an ultrasound room. You have a counseling room, and you have a chapel. Tell us about the chapel.
There's 2 counseling rooms, and there's a chapel. The chapel is the largest room in the building. I made that specifically by about 3 inches.
Good for you. To show where your priorities are. And who lives in that chapel, Rod, 24/7?
Jesus Christ is here.
Absolutely. He's in your chapel.
We have 24/7. We have the presence. And
oh, wow.
And we have Mass there. There's less priests now than there used to be. We used to have Mass there at least once a week. It's not quite once a week, but we still have Mass there regularly.
Beautiful. And it's large enough. How many people can fit in there?
20 maybe.
Yeah, well, that's your. How many volunteers do you have right now?
Yeah. It depends, maybe 12 or 15 or something.
So
like
volunteers plus a couple of spouses and friends. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the bishop gave you approval for the Blessed Sacrament when?
Well, we had a chapel in the old building too. So we had the permission in the old building from the previous bishop. The new bishop came and saw our place, and he loves what we do. And
that's Bishop McManus.
Yes.
Of the Worcester. Worcester, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Worcester bishop. We have a priest on our board of directors. I think that's important for the bishop to give permission. You need to have a priest responsible.
Sure, because he's responsible for the Eucharist.
Yes, he's responsible for the Eucharist, and so it's locked and it's protected, yes.
Very good. And you have a very solid tabernacle that no one's going to invade. And it's the heart of your center, and that's the beautiful part of it. Well, so you're there, and you're saving up to 250 babies. That's almost one a day. And you're not even open every day. So you have some good days when you save more than one, right?
Yeah, but then there's times when it's dead and nothing happens, and we have sidewalk counselors across the street too, and they are sometimes successful, sometimes not successful, and we use all the new modern internet SEO, search engine optimization stuff.
Tell us about that. How does that work?
Well, you have to target your. We know the women who get abortions are between 16 and 35 or something like that, and we target those women. We hire people. We've got more donors now, so we can afford to do this. So we get people who know this kind of work. They know how to optimize your website. In other words, they know how to get women to our website rather than Planned Parenthood's website. So they use all.
And how would they do that? Give me an example. When a woman enters, let's say, the word abortion Worcester.
Yeah.
In a search.
Our website uses the word abortion all over the place because when Google looks at the website, they give you prominence first listing if under abortion if you list the name abortion. So we put it all over the place, and that's just one example. There are many other examples of how they target, and there's new things coming up, so which we're looking at. But
you're up on the latest technological advances.
We are really good people. There's a guy down in Baltimore who specializes in crisis pregnancy centers, and he's right up on everything. And he's the guy that I use, and we're good friends. And he'll call me and say, well, here's something I just heard. What do you think of this for an idea? So we go talk about it. But we're trying to compete with Planned Parenthood online, and we are. And
they've got far more money than you do, for sure.
Oh, man, I'll say. They got millions and millions.
How much money you get from the state lately, Rod? Zero, right?
Yeah, that's a joke. Well, in fact, I don't even know if we'd ever take it, because it comes with strings.
It comes with strings attached, sure.
Yeah.
So it's all donations, and you keep up with the latest because about what percentage of the women that walk in your doors have been referred by the internet?
That's a good question. I would say this is, it's like selling. When there's more than one way you reach a customer. You could reach them face to face. You could reach them on a telephone. You could reach them on the internet. Well, there's combinations of things, but I'd say the internet is probably 75% of the influence.
So it's not just women pulling down the block and seeing your place versus Planned Parenthood deciding to go to you necessarily. That's a small percentage.
Yeah, we also have a very good presence on the front of our building. And our signage is really good, and we have a canopy that's pink, so that it looks like a feminist kind of thing. We do everything possible to bring the girls in who come for an appointment with Planned Parenthood. They come into us sometimes by mistake, and we get them both ways. We get them sometimes by mistake, and we get them from the internet. Plus, we have others. We have other attracting efforts where you know what Google words are. Google words are the top of it. When you look up something on Google, you see at the top of the page where you're looking up, I don't know, furnaces or something. It'll be at the top. There'll be some plumbing supply place above it. It's an ad. Okay.
Related searches. Yeah.
Yeah. We use those ads, or my SEO guy uses those ads with another phone number so we're actually competing with ourselves on the Google page.
Any which way to get the women in there. But that's wonderful because, at any time, let's say a woman comes in there by accident, quote unquote, at any time the door is open to walk out, but at least she has an opportunity to see her baby if she wants and to hear about alternatives.
Yeah, she comes in and gets a pre-pregnancy test, and which sometimes there's no baby there, and or there's no heartbeat, or there's no. So many.
She might have been having a miscarriage anyway. Would Planned Parenthood still do an abortion on her?
Yeah, they were going to do an abortion on her anyway, whether she needed it or not. So just having a pregnancy test is good for her.
Right, and you're not charging them where Planned Parenthood does.
We don't charge anything, and we don't pay any of our people. We're 100% volunteer.
100% volunteer. That's just amazing. Because in my last show I was talking about the fact that the state of California was forcing pregnancy centers to post a sign saying where they could get a free abortion, but they would never dream of telling an abortion clinic to tell people where you are and how if you don't want to go through with the abortion, here's where you could go. In 20-some-odd years that St. George Center for Life, Hartford Women's Center were operating in Hartford, there was only once that Planned Parenthood referred a woman who wanted to carry her child to term.
Did that
happen? Yeah? Yeah, you must have died of shock.
Once.
Well, good for them, at least for once. But should be a lot more. They should respect a woman's wishes when they see a woman who looks coerced. That should be their first reaction. I've also heard that Planned Parenthood was covering up sexual abuse of minors by giving the girl an abortion and not reporting that her boyfriend was older than 18 when she wasn't. Am I correct?
Or a father, or a brother, or an uncle.
Right.
Who was getting her pregnant, and how many of those do you think there was? Lots.
Well, there was a terrible case in Hartford where a girl was held hostage for over a year and sexually abused, and during that time she went for an abortion to Planned Parenthood, and they refused to turn in her boyfriend, who was her captor, and she was captive several months after that. And she could have been saved if they had basically respected the law, because if there's a child under 18 and an adult over 18, that's by law statutory rape, and they are forced as mandated reporters to report it, and they don't.
Yeah.
And they're seldom prosecuted for it. In fact,
they never
Lila Rose on Live Action has several recordings of Planned Parenthood with a fake client. She sends in women with recording devices, coaching the young woman on how to lie about her boyfriend's age. The girl states that she has a boyfriend over 18, and they're on record, on camera, coaching her to lie about the boyfriend's age. So it's not like they're doing it by accident. So you really are a pro-women's center, even though you're a man. Have you ever get harassed about that, Rod?
Well, I'm the only man. I'm the only man. All the volunteers are women. The only person that the clients ever see are women. All I am is a facilitator and a fundraiser, and someone who has to make a decision. And we have a board of directors too, but most of the time they come to me and say, "What do we do in this case, in that case, and I'm the guy with the checkbook too." So
there you go.
So when they come to the situation where we need money or rent or something, we double, triple check everything, and then I give the okay. So I'm not a front man at all. So they don't see me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not dealing with the women; you're dealing with the volunteers. So you decided
a man is the enemy. A woman who's been in that kind of situation thinks of men as the enemy.
She's been mistreated by at least one man in her life that we know of. And you're probably the last one she wants to speak to, even though, I'm sure you would be compassionate and warm-hearted as you are. But you're right. Just by being a man, they see you as the enemy. So when did you start helping? I said that you helped set up 9 other pregnancy centers like your own. When did you start doing that?
I'm trying to think. It was I know what it was. I got the years wrong, but sometime in the 90s, I was asked to speak to the Pioneer Valley Mass Citizens for Life chapter, which is Springfield and the Berkshires, and I had been thinking about opening a place in one of our places in Springfield near Planned Parenthood. Because Planned Parenthood opened a third abortion clinic in Springfield, and I was trying to find a place near it. So anyway, I had a couple of people who were helping me, and then they asked me to speak to for the dinner. They had a big dinner once a year. There were 300 people in the audience, and I gave a speech telling what we do and how we do it, and then I gave them my exhortation speech in my speech where I tell them, what are you going to do about this? They're killing 2,500 babies down the street, and you were praying on your knees in the church. But what are you going to get up off your knees and go do something to stop it? That kind of stuff. And and I after berating them for
encouraging them, Rod, exhorting them. Don't say berating.
Well, and I got to the point where I stopped and I said, okay, I'm going to stop for a minute before I finish. I want you to go to the corner over there. You see where the father of so-and-so was standing. All right. When I'm done the speech, I want to have a group of people over there who want to help me start this crisis pregnancy center. So then I finished my speech. I went there with like 20 people there.
Wow.
So we started a group. We got a board of directors. We met for about a year and a half, And we finally found a place, and it took a lot of work and a lot of doing. But
I'm sure.
That was the second one. And
were they able to raise money before they had a place, or which came first?
Well, there were already people out there praying and the sidewalk counseling. That's another thing I had. I brought in somebody to train the sidewalk counselors also. So Ann Shiloh, you know Ann Shiloh from Joe Shiloh's wife.
No, sure.
She does that. And she came in and talked to them, and so it was a combination of things. They were doing the sidewalk counseling, and we were opening the crisis pregnancy center. And so then I did one in Manchester, New Hampshire. I did one in Plattsburgh, New York, all next to Planned Parenthood. I did one in Binghamton, New York. That was not a Planned Parenthood. That was another abortion mill. I did one in Tampa, Florida. I'm missing some.
Maine.
I'm working on one in Maine. I'm working on one in Burlington, Vermont. Of course, the one that you used to help, where I helped with you in Hartford.
Part of the reason is you wrote about it in your book that you met our former director Teresa, and she had an office in a rickety building across five street intersection, a really crazy intersection next to the center of Hartford, next to Harvard Hospital. You had to go up a tiny set of stairs, and it was over a barbershop and under a rap studio, so the noise and the fragrance was remarkable. Hardly an oasis, even though it was spiritually. Yet she was managing to do amazing work. And you pointed out that right next to the building that was owned, and this is a condo complex, by Hartford Hartford GYN, was a couple empty doctor's offices. And you pointed it out to me. And when I read the book, I went to visit the site, and they said, it has a for sale sign on it. Let's go buy it. And people warned me. They said, well, they're going to say no. I said, well, I'll keep going till they do. And then I'll keep pushing after they say no. And when I'm stopped, I'm stopped. But, nothing was ever accomplished by saying this can't be done. So I was volunteer director for a couple of years of Hartford, which I renamed Hartford Women's Center, again, so that women could know that we are for them and that we're not only helping Catholics. St. Gerard's, most of the people they helped weren't Catholic. But there was some reticence over our name because most of the people we help are non-Catholic, and sometimes they have very interesting views of the Catholic Church. One woman called me from the abortion clinic where she had a pregnancy test and said, "You people are a cult, right?" So I explained to the board we had to change the name because of the public perception of the Catholic Church. And you laugh because you're a Catholic, you know better. But you don't know what people have heard out there. So we want to eliminate that, whatever prejudice there might be against the Catholic Church, and just say we're here for women. That's what a women's center should be. Of course, many of them aren't. Many of them are abortion clinics. But that's not our fault. So there was a hullabaloo when NARAL moved in, by the way, over the abortion clinic. They gave them offices the month after we bought our facility. We bought it for $68,000 cash. And they moved in across on top of the abortion clinic a month later on the Feast of the Holy Innocents, December 28th. I thought that was interesting. And within 5 months we had opened, and I heard that they cut one of their abortion doctors' hours so severely that she retired early at 67. And she is meeting with one of our sidewalk counselors. And we're hoping that someday she'll join Abby Johnson's organization for those that have let the abortion industry as she has. So we're praying for that. But the instant we opened, and Rod came to our open house, he was the star of the show, and the instant we opened that place, the abortions dropped off before we even did anything. The paint was still drying. So just having, like you said, just having people praying there. And actually, our center, St. Gerard's, was opened by seminarians who had been praying in front of that place. That place has been around for 39 years. We've been around since 2006, so that would be, 12. And but anyway, so just the mere presence of it, many times it's seminarians and nuns from Vietnam, Africa, China, from all over the world, silently praying, not bothering anybody, and people they feel bad because they know what they're doing is wrong. I heard a story of a little girl who had 12 abortions, and she was a regular visitor there. And when the nuns and priests were praying, she was tiny enough to squeeze through the iron bars on the other side of the abortion clinic so she didn't have to walk through the line of people praying. It didn't deter her, but it did affect her. And I'm happy to say that she had a baby with our help and went to confession for the first time in her life. She was a Catholic, but not practicing. And now she can sleep at night. She recovered from alcohol. We helped her find alcohol rehab. We helped her pursue her GED, her driver's license, just get her whole life together. And now she's in recovery, and she's got a 1-year-old. And we couldn't be more pleased. But it was thanks to the prayers and the donations. So anyway, so you've helped many different places set up, but they're not necessarily branches of problem pregnancy. You don't retain control over them.
None of them are. Well, it was one of them was, but that was in Athol, Mass. It was not next to an abortion mill. The people in northern Worcester County wanted to do something, so it's problem pregnancy of North Quabbin now. But all the other ones are run on their own. They have board of directors. They raise their own money, and I set up another organization called Frontline Life Centers where I raise money just for these people who have started their crisis pregnancy centers that need money. They can come to me for $2,000, $5,000 for something, and
little starter grants. Yeah. Fantastic. So you're like the father of 10 or 11 locations and growing.
Yeah, and I've helped many others too who I didn't start them, but they asked me how to do this and that and the other thing. Rhode Island and someone in Fairbanks, Alaska, and people call me because of the book. They call and ask, yeah.
The book is Stopping Abortion at Death's Door. And what's a phone number that you'd be willing to give out for anyone that's looking to start a pregnancy center and even just wants to chat with you? They don't necessarily have to get a grant or whatever, but they just want to pick your brain. What would be a phone number?
774-230-1756.
Again?
774-230-1756.
All right, so that's fantastic. They can call you, or they can contact me on my Facebook page, or they can look up Problem Pregnancy and call through that number. And just say, we have a Planned Parenthood in our town, an abortion clinic, and we do pray outside, but we like to be able to do more. I know we have a Planned Parenthood here in Norwich, Connecticut, and I've had it on my heart since I read your book, and you also mentioned that location as a possible site. I've had that on my heart since I live close by, and many of my parishioners participate in 40 Days for Life there in the fall to try and start a pregnancy center there. So we'll keep my listeners apprised of our success there. We don't want to give away the store, but we do say that this is something that we'd like their prayer for, because there should never be an abortion clinic, period. But if there has to be an abortion clinic, hopefully that there will always be an alternative right there. And abortions are down 50% since 1988. I discussed in my last show how we have 300 different restrictions on the state level for abortion, whether it's waiting period, parental consent, but right now, or having to see a sonogram before you have an abortion. But I think a large part of the lowering of the numbers of abortion is that we are helping women, that pregnancy resource centers outnumber abortion clinics 3-1. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when we had fewer pregnancy resource centers than abortion clinics. But two positive trends are happening. The abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood is closing down many of them because they're no longer viable. And let's face it, they're not in it to help women. They're in it to make money. And number two, the pregnancy resource centers are growing. So that's another huge factor that we can't underestimate.
Have I got much time left? I want to talk about one thing.
Okay, no, we've got another 15 minutes.
Okay. I want to explain to your listeners the difference between crisis pregnancy centers.
Yes.
I do it in a simplified manner. There are wannabe moms crisis pregnancy centers, and there are don't want to be moms crisis pregnancy centers. Now, the wannabe moms crisis pregnancy centers locate distant from the abortion clinic. They're mostly handle women who are probably don't want to have an abortion, and they're needy for material things, or they want to be affirmed on their decision, and they want counseling perhaps. And there are many, many, many of those. And then there are the don't want to be moms, and that's the Hartford Women's Center, Problem Pregnancy, and those kind of places where we're located right next to the abortion mill. and we deal with the women who want abortions, and they're the toughest ones to change. They're the toughest ones to deal with. And they're the place where we need to be. We Catholics, we Christians need to be there, because those, if you were Stop and Shop supermarkets, you would want to locate as close as you can to another supermarket if the other supermarket was prominent.
Of course.
So you compete with the place where they're killing babies so that you can stop some of them, and there's wannabe moms and don't want to be moms.
Yeah, that's true, because you've got to sort of convince women that are abortion-minded. We call it abortion-minded, right? That's another definition of them. As you said, many of them do feel coerced, but they have, in many cases, made up their minds that abortion is their only way out of the situation. And in many cases, it doesn't work, right? The boyfriend that they had the abortion for, the relationship in most cases breaks up. And I have a private theory of why. I think the women come out of there angry and hurt, and they've been through this trauma of an abortion, emotional, physical, no matter what their view of abortion is. It's not easy. I've seen them as they come out. I've prayed with them as they come out, and they are really torn up. And the man acts as a no big deal. He's off the hook, and he's happy. And there's I believe there's an antagonism that develops between the woman who's suffering post-abortion. She's bleeding, she's cramping, she's missing her baby, she's haunted many times. Mother's Day bothers her, baby ads bother her, many triggers in society. And he isn't as deeply infected in many cases. So there's an antagonism, and they break up in many cases. So it poisons the relationship. She thinks it's going to fix it. But in many cases, any relationship where a man would make a woman go through that is not a relationship that's worth saving anyway. But, some of these poor women have had such bad track records. Their families are so broken. That's what they settle for.
Yes.
Being used. This is all they know. That's how their mothers were. That's life for many women in our society. And it's not just the poor women. It can be a middle-class woman, anyone. Any woman whose husband or partner forces her into an abortion isn't really loved. And, it's just sad that they'll accept that. But so thank you. There is definitely a difference between those that are just providing baby supplies for women that need the support, and it's a wonderful, noble cause. But it's a special class of people that will open up next to an abortion clinic and be right there on the front lines, because they are going to put up with a lot of abuse.
I think those people are often Catholics, because Catholics have a different viewpoint on life and death than evangelicals. They have we think that a woman who's going to have an abortion is committing a terrible sin, and we want to stop that. But we first want to stop the baby from being killed. And we Catholics, many of us are ethnics, and we've gone, our fathers, mothers, grandfathers went through hell when they came here, and we know that you don't get anything without working hard at it, and taking abuse is part of our DNA. So we
also understand sacrifice, Rod, the sacrifice of the cross, the sacrifice of the Mass. We understand redemptive suffering. There's a depth to our faith, which includes offering one's pain and suffering, and loving people who are quite unlovable. And at Hartford Women's Center, we had many encounters with. They have a big security team now that we're there, because we're so scary. The little ladies praying the rosary outside are so scary. And they have security guards and escorts, and we've been spit at, we've been pushed, certainly insulted in every way imaginable. And as far as I can tell, we've always returned love and peace and prayers. We've even offered to give them rosaries. We've prayed with them, usually when they can hide around the corner from the other ones. We've done nothing but offer love to them, because they're our ministry too. We want them to come around and be like Abby Johnson. Abby Johnson said that she was abortion clinic director in Texas, where 40 Days for Life started in College Station. She said it was the compassion of the outside sidewalk counselors that when Planned Parenthood was pressuring her to meet quotas of abortions, and she did an ultrasound and helped with an ultrasound during an abortion, and actually witnessed an abortion and was falling apart. She went to the people outside her abortion clinic and asked them for their prayers, because they had been giving her love and flowers and birthday presents, and not condemning her. None of us do that. We want them to come around, because we understand that God forgave us, so we want God's mercy for them too. We're not there to wish that they go to hell. We're there to help save them from endangering their own
these
souls.
crisis pregnancy centers, my crisis pregnancy centers, the ones that I helped to start, are almost all Catholic. There is one. The one in Binghamton was started by Catholics and then joined by the evangelicals. So this combination. But most of our centers have both types working in there too, the volunteers. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's the aggressive nature of ethnic Americans is why we're there. I think because why I'm there. I know why I'm there, because I don't believe things happen unless you get your ass kicked. Probably I shouldn't say that. Somebody's going. In other words, you're going to take abuse. So you to agree to it before you start, and then once you're doing it, it becomes part of your life that you're going to get insulted and thrown things at and called names and graffiti.
It's funny.
On the
That
building.
sounds a lot like a passage in the Bible where Jesus promised us that we'll be abused just as He was. And by his own fellow religionists, right? By the priests and scribes in the Jewish temple, were the ones that pushed for his death. So even sometimes within the Catholic Church, it's misunderstood that we are trying to get women in there who are still considering abortion, that we're trying to sway them, because it's for their good. Abortion is never a good. The Church says that clearly. The abortion is never justified. Even in the case of life of the mother. I'll get into that in another broadcast. But there are ways to save a mother's life without directly killing the baby or deliberately killing the baby anyway. But the abortion is never, ever, ever necessary. With people like you and me that are willing to go to great lengths to help women rebuild their lives. And they just said, many women say, if only you were there the last time I went.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that many times.
Why weren't you there before? If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd never have to fundraise again. So I remember that when I'm getting the abuse, even if it's from people within the movement, within my own church, they say, you just need to witness the gratitude of these women that have had their lives put back together by complete strangers. And that's how they come to know the love of Christ. And we always share that with them when they're ready. That why do we do this, they'll ask us, right? We do it because we love Jesus.
I just remember the latest one I'm doing is in Haverhill, Mass, and I'm going to speak to a group of Knights of Columbus in Haverhill, Mass, the end of this month, and to get the fundraising going for them, because they're brand new and they're located right next to an abortion mill. It's not a Planned Parenthood, and I just forgot all about that one. This one, it's called the Merrimack Valley Pregnancy Service. Right next door to Merrimack Valley OBGYN.
Perfect. See, because they really are serving pregnancy. Yeah. What kind of obstetrician kills babies? Not a good one.
No.
But pregnancy services, you're really helping pregnant women. And best of luck with that. We'll have you back on another time to discuss. Rod's been very active in the local politics, all the way up to the national level. He's affected Supreme Court decisions and whatnot. But, we definitely have to have you back for another show discussing that. And you have any advice to people who are upset about the local abortion clinic?
Yeah, go down there and convince the women not to go in. Do something. Learn how to be a sidewalk counselor. Mm-hmm. And you can do that online, or you can talk to the people who are doing it. Talk to your priest. Do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are free trainings at sidewalkcounselors.org and the Scheidler family of Chicago Pro-Life Action League. Is that there? They also have they have another very effective sidewalk training. And if you don't feel up to talking to the women, just get your rosary and pray in front of the clinic, and that will be an amazing deterrent. We let our Lord fight our battles for us in the hardest of hearts.
Yes.
I've heard that abortion workers say when there are people praying outside that all breaks loose inside the abortion clinic, because it's a spiritual battle. If we could only see the angels and demons surrounding both sides, it's definitely a spiritual battle, and we these poor women and poor babies are caught in the middle of it. I'm going to read a passage in closing from Evangelium Vitae. It's from what chapter is this? 87, about pregnancy services. In Pope St. John Paul II says, "Where life is involved, the service of charity must be profoundly consistent. It cannot tolerate bias and discrimination, for human life is sacred and inviolable at every stage and in every situation. It is an indivisible good. We need to show care for all life and for the life of everyone. Indeed, an even deeper level, we need to go to the very roots of life and love. It is this deep love for every man and woman which has given rise down the centuries to an outstanding history of charity, a history which has brought into being the church and society many forms of service to life which evoke admiration from even all unbiased observers. Every Christian community with a renewed sense of responsibility must continue to write that history through various kinds of pastoral and social activity. To this end, appropriate and effective programs of support for new life, which is what a pregnancy center is, must be implemented, with special closeness to mothers who, even without the help of the father, are not afraid to bring their child into the world and raise it. Similar care must be shown for the life of marginalized or suffering, especially in the final phases." So there, John Paul is making reference to pregnancy centers in the fine Catholic tradition of hospitals, orphanages, schools, asylums for the mentally ill, nursing homes. I mean, we have a 2,000-year history of compassion in the Catholic Church. And professionalism. We basically developed the nursing profession, private schools, and for helping the poor and for our immigrants. So pregnancy centers are just the latest evolution of a long history of Catholic charity. And Rod, you're an innovator in the sense that you're perfecting the art of helping the moms, but this is just another of a long line of charities for people like Mother Cabrini, who would set up orphanages for the poor Italians in New York and go up and down South America doing it. So someday we hope that we don't need these, but even if Roe versus Wade were to be overturned, there would still be many years of abortion in this country, and we will always have women in crisis that will need the support and need the love and need to know that somebody out there cares. Maybe nobody in her life cares, but because of Jesus Christ, we care, and we are going to stand between her and the crisis and to hold her as she feels weak and to help her pick up her pieces and pick up her baby in the end and then eventually become free enough to raise that child, whether or not the man's involved. I mean, it's very sad that men have failed to carry the responsibility, but we'd like to educate them too. But in the meantime, the woman and her baby are going to be safe. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate your listening. Come back next week for another installment of Living the Gospel of Life. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.